Donald Trump is always angry, always upset, and always lashing out at one of his many enemies from within, as he would like to dub them. And near the top of that list is now Senator Adam Schiff, who Donald Trump has been attacking relentlessly lately, not only because he is attempting to withhold aid from the state in which Senator Schiff represents, California, but also because Adam Schiff has been so direct in calling out Donald Trump's disgusting decision to pardon over 1,500 violent, cop-beating January 6th insurrectionists. And so Donald Trump has been lashing out, like I said, at Adam Schiff lately, and Senator Schiff just responded in a series of brutal takedowns on all of the most important issues that Donald Trump is failing at that we are going to get into in just a second. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really means the world to me. Now, this is a great interview that Adam Schiff had this morning on Meet the Press, and there's a lot we're going to cover in it. But first, let's hear his response to Donald Trump's January 6 pardons.
Welcome back. And joining me now is Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of California. Senator Schiff, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Great to be with you.
It's great to have you here in person. Thank you for joining us. I want to start on President Trump's sweeping pardons of the January 6th convicts. When he was on the campaign trail, he said he was going to look at each by a case-to-case basis. He also never ruled out pardoning those who had criminal convictions, who pleaded guilty to assaulting police officers, for example. Were you surprised by these blanket pardons, Senator?
I don't know if I can say that I was surprised, but I was certainly appalled by them, and I was glad to hear Senator Graham share that concern over pardoning people who violently attacked police and beat them, bear sprayed them, crushed them in doorways, people who are utterly unrepentant for assaulting law enforcement. This not only is a terrible injury, additional injury to those law enforcement officers, but also this was a crime that was committed in furtherance of trying to stop the transfer of power after Donald Trump lost the election. So part of a bigger political crime. And it sends a message to others out there. If you use violence to keep Donald Trump in power or use violence in the service of Donald Trump, he will have your back. I guess when he said after the Charlottesville neo-Nazi rally, vis-a-vis the Proud Boys, stand by and stand back, or whatever his language was, he really meant it, because he did have their back ultimately.
Well, the other pardons that were in focus this past week were, of course, those issued by President Biden as he was on his way out of the White House, issued pardons to family members. And in 2020, here's what he said about President Trump potentially issuing pardons to his family members. Take a look.
It concerns me in terms of what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice.
Senator, do you think that President Biden pardoning his own family members sets, as he says, a bad precedent?
Absolutely. He was right when he made those remarks. He was wrong to give these pardons. And among other things, what it says now to the Trump family and to President Trump's kids, they can engage in any kind of malfeasance, criminality, graft, whatever, and they can expect a pardon on the way out the door. That is not a message you want to send to this family or really any family occupying the White House.
Well, it's interesting. Your colleague, Senator Tim Kaine, had this to say about President Biden pardoning his family members. He says, quote, "It's harder to stand on the high ground and make a critique of the Trump pardons on January 6th when President Biden is pardoning family members." Do you agree with that? Does it make it harder to criticize President Trump's decision to issue those blanket pardons to the January 6th convicts?
I think it muddies the issue to a degree, but there is no comparing even the ill-considered pardon of his own family members with pardoning hundreds and hundreds of people who violently attack police. They are not the same thing. Nevertheless, none of these precedents are good, but the most damaging, most destructive is to pardon people who are using violence against law enforcement in your service. That, I can't imagine a more destructive precedent than that one.
And of course, President Biden did issue pardons to members of the January 6th committee. You were on the January 6th committee. It came after President Trump said that he thought the entire January 6th committee should go to jail. What's interesting, Senator, you had been quite vocal. You didn't want President Biden to give you a pardon. You went so far as to convey that to the White House. So what are you going to do about the fact that you've now been given a pardon? Are you going to accept it, or are you planning to look for some type of legal recourse to reject it?
We're looking at it. I'm not sure there's much to be done, given that it went to the whole committee. This is also, I think, unprecedented. In the first instance, it was a result of the president wrongfully threatening to go after people who oversee his misconduct in a legitimate committee process. Nevertheless, we'll have to look at this as a committee to see if there's anything to be done.
What does that mean, you're going to look at it? Does that mean that you'll make a decision collectively about whether to accept these pardons?
We have tried to operate together as a committee, and I think the law is unclear because this is frankly uncharted territory. Whether pardons of this nature are like a law in which you're powerless to say yay or nay, or there's something different.
It is quite murky, but it sounds like what you're saying is we'll look at it, but most likely you're going to have to accept this pardon whether you like it or not.
It may not be actionable one way or another unless there is actually some kind of bogus effort to prosecute the committee.
I wanted to play that full clip, not just Senator Schiff talking about Donald Trump's pardons, but responding to this media narrative conflating Trump's pardons and President Biden's pardons. Now, say what you will about President Biden's decision to pardon his family at the last minute. It is in no way the same as Donald Trump pardoning violent criminals in a time in which he is constantly saying that other countries are emptying their prisons into America. Donald Trump actually just emptied our prisons with January 6th insurrectionists in them. And of course, that is infuriating Donald Trump that is being called out by Adam Schiff, pointing out that hypocrisy and also pointing out the hypocrisy in Donald Trump's immigration plan, as he did right here.
On immigration and the border, Congress, of course, passed a bill to address the border. Some of your Democratic colleagues from border states actually signed on. This is the Laken-Riley Act, a bill, just so folks understand, that would effectively allow law enforcement to detain and deport those who've been convicted of theft-related crimes. In a statement explaining his vote, your colleague, Arizona's Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego, said this, quote, "We must give law enforcement the means to take action when illegal immigrants break the law to prevent situations like what occurred to Laken Riley, who was, of course, killed by someone who was undocumented." You voted no on that. How do you respond to Senator Gallego?
Look, the administration already has the authority to detain people that have committed violent crimes for deportation, and they should. But this bill is so broad that if you're a dreamer and you take a tube of toothpaste from the store, you can be detained for deportation. That, to me, is a terrible overreach. So the president already has the authority. I don't mind confirming he has the authority, but I don't want to broaden that to be able to deport dreamers for taking a tube of toothpaste.
What do you say to those who would argue that your vote ignores the security concerns that voters expressed in this last election?
I would say, look, I support the deportation of people who commit violent crime. What I don't support are these randomized raids on people that detain American citizens, that detain members of the military, because this is what we're seeing happening around the country. We're seeing a kind of chaos in which, in contradiction of the president's commitment that he was going to start focused on violent criminals, they're just detaining anyone. They're going into workplaces, and anyone who looks like they should be detained is getting detained without, it seems, rhyme or reason. That doesn't make sense. I think it's inhumane. But what's more, the president also said that his top priority was bringing down the price of things. Mass deportations of farm workers in California, maybe half the workforce, are going to drive food prices through the roof. Mass deportation of construction workers are going to drive housing prices even more through the roof. So which is it going to be? What is his real priority? Is it addressing the economic concerns of Americans? Or is it going to be this kind of mass deportation, family separation, randomized raids, which is what we're seeing?
I continue to say this. I really think MAGA has overestimated their mandate or miscalculated really why they were sent to Washington. Donald Trump thinks he can do whatever he wants. He thought he could make Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. He thinks Pete Hegseth as SecDef is what the American people want, when it's really just lower grocery costs, to lower the cost of rent, to make gas cheaper. Things that Donald Trump is, in fact, not only not doing, but he's doing the opposite of. We're seeing egg prices explode right now, and Donald Trump's tariffs are only going to make gas more expensive. So they've really miscalculated on this, and that is no surprise. That's constantly what they do. And another example of that, when Donald Trump's response to the needs of the American people are not correct, is in the aid that he wants to condition to California, which Senator Schiff called out right here.
Are you and can you commit that California disaster relief won't have strings attached?
No, I won't commit that because we have a serious problem in California.
So it could be linked to the debt limit, to an increase in the debt limit.
Potentially. That's one of the things we're talking about.
The debt limit is the nation's borrowing limit for folks who are watching. What is your response to Speaker Johnson?
That is just shameful. Americans are hurting right now. When his state was hit by Katrina, I fought to get aid for Katrina. I went with a congressional delegation a year later to see how the recovery was going and to raise issues about how slow it was and how we needed to bring more urgency to it. I never even thought for a moment, okay, this is a red state, maybe we shouldn't provide aid or maybe we should tie it to some unrelated policy objective. I think it is shameful what he is saying. And let me say this, as a Californian, we have given more to the recovery of other states than any other state in the union. You do not want to go down this road.
I know that that was not a threat from the senator, but kind of could have been, saying you do not want to play this game. You do not want to start conditioning aid to California when it is the rest of the states. And mind you, red states, even though Democrats are not the ones playing political games like this, that need that disaster response aid. And Donald Trump is now talking about abolishing FEMA altogether. I don't know how his home state of Florida is going to feel about that. I don't know how Texas, when it snows and the power grid is destroyed, I don't know how Louisiana would feel about that. But if you want to go ahead and cause problems, Donald, go ahead. And it's sad because I would say go ahead, but we do not want to see people not be able to recover or live after a disaster. But Donald Trump doesn't seem to care. So that's why we have to continue to call him out, as we are going to on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.